Hey guys, this is Ben here with Miles, and today I'm going to show you how to swap out the controller on your Miles dual skateboard. So the first thing we're going to want to do is use your 2mm hex key to take out all the screws on top. I actually have a power drill, so I'm going to cheat a little bit. Now that the 10 deck screws have been removed, we can go ahead and take the lid off. And here's what you should see. Now, good practice when dealing with anything that involves electricity is to remove it from the power source before you begin doing any maintenance on it. With the Miles board, there will be an on-off switch on the corner of the battery, so you will click that from on to off. Now, if you have an Airline battery, instead of having an on-off switch, what you will have is a little connector piece like this in place of the actual switch itself. To remove that, you want to grab onto the white connector part as best you can and slide it out. So that will stop the power on the Airline battery. The next step, once the power is shut off, is to remove this cover guard on the controller. To do that, I like to slide it back to remove the back two connectors, and then using my fingers, try and get underneath here and pry it out from the side. And this is what you should see. With the battery power shut off, you can now remove these connectors to the battery. Your board may have some hot glue on it holding them into place, so if that's there, just use your fingernail to kind of pull that off. But what you want to do is actually disconnect these from the battery. Do that so you can see it. And then from there, you're going to again take your 2mm tool and remove the 4 bolts right here holding down the controller. Now when you take these off, be careful because there are some lock washers on the bottom that you want to keep track of. So if you can see here, when you pull these screws out, make sure that the washers actually come with it too. So go ahead and do that to the other 3. The first thing I like to do is take the 2 yellow connectors off like this. Again, you may have some hot glue going across the top, so peel that off first and then you can go ahead and take these off. Now for the final 2 connections, it's very important that you do not pull them out from the wires. What you want to do is take a pair of needle nose pliers and come in from the side and make sure you're only grabbing the white of the connector piece. And once you have a grip on that, you can go ahead and pull the connector out. Again, you're going to want to take your needle nose and come in. Make sure you're only grabbing the white part of the connector, not the wires, and you'll be able to pull this connection off. Now it's time to put in your new controller, and we're basically going to do the reverse order of how we took this out. So the first thing you want to do is put in these white connectors. Again, make sure that you have the 2 yellow on the outside here is going to line up with the back of the board, and you're taking the one on the left, putting it into that slot, the one on the right into that slot. And you see here how there's 2 little ridges on the back as opposed to the metal you can see here. You want both ridges facing up when you secure them into the controller, like so. Again, you want to push firmly here to make sure that it's seated properly. Now that those are both secure, you can take your yellow connectors, push them in nice and tight. And again, you can go ahead and do the same for the top 2 into the battery. The longer wire is going to go into the side port that says charge. Again, make sure these are seated firmly. And the shorter one is going to go into the one that says discharge on the top of the battery. So one thing I wanted to mention with these yellow connector pieces is that there is a rounded side and a square side. So you want to make sure that those line up nicely when you go to plug them in. All right, now that you have all the connections on, it's time to place these wires nice and neatly, and then you're going to want to use your hardware again, the screws with the lock washers, and begin tightening down the controller one bolt at a time using your 2mm hex key. Now, what I like to do is get one of them in place and just hand tighten it until it's seated nicely. You don't need to over tighten because you may need to move the controller to make sure that the rest of these screws fit in. So that's what I'm gonna do now, is put the other 3 in. So now that all your connectors are firmly seated into place, an option that you could do is to hot glue over these connector pieces like you saw on your board when you first opened it up. It's to your discretion. It will help hold it firmer into place, so that's totally up to you. Now that everything's secure, you want to take your controller cover and click it back into place. You can hear it when it locks down, like that, nice and secure. And then the most important step is to now turn your battery back on. Do not forget, this is very important. So if you'll remember, there's just an on-off switch here, which you click into the on position, or if you have that Airline battery, what you're going to want to do is put this piece back in, and you'll see that on the side of it, there's actually a ridge on both sides, and you want to line that up with the side right here. Now this battery will be in place, so you're going to have to do it on the board, but it should just slide in, and when you hear it click, you know that it's seated firmly. Now with your battery turned on, the last step is to test and make sure that the board will power up. To do that, what you're going to want to do is spin the back left tire, and if you hear 2 beeps, you'll know that everything is connected and the board is operable. So listen up. That's how we know that the battery is connected and everything's working like it should. If you hear 1 beep or just a small little chirp, it may mean that the battery is not on, or that some of these connections aren't firmly secured, so you're going to want to go back and make sure that you connect those. So all the pieces are secure. You've checked to make sure that when you spin the back left tire, it beeps twice. Now everything's installed, and you can go ahead and put your deck lid back on, and using that 10mm Allen key, screw all 10 of these back into the lid, and you'll be good to go.